Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2022. And that brings us to that release, which has been designated by Criterion at spy number 1163. This is a set which is made up of 3 separate films, each of which is from the filmmaker who is the one, the only, Michael Haneke. And the name of this release from Criterion is Michael Haneke Trilogy. This is the release from the year 2022, this year. This is the brilliant release, again, at spy number 1163. It is Michael Haneke Trilogy. And what a bold and provocative set of films this is. This is a set of films from a bold set of films from a bold and very provocative filmmaker indeed. And when one examines these works and one engages with these works, one is being challenged. There are sets of questions whose answers are not yielded so readily. And so it is up to oftentimes the viewer to make up the viewer's own mind in terms of interpreting many of these images, the types and moments and components of information that are being presented, each in its own way in these films. This is a film set that is oftentimes regarded as a thematically connected trilogy. In terms of, say, the impact of, say, the external forces and internal forces of society, societal expectations, peer pressure, the idea of daily routine in modern day living, in terms of the minutia of everyday living, in the context of family life, in the context of, say, a family life and externalized groups of people, and then even further outward in terms of a societal network or lattice work of various seemingly random or disconnected pockets of people. But this disconnect perhaps gives way to an interconnectivity that may be more interconnected than meets the eye. And that interconnectivity oftentimes might be suggestive of something either positive or beneficial in terms of a societal benefit, and or there might be something negative or malevolent or negatively consequential in terms of this lattice work of interconnectivity that may or may not be easily perceptible. Not to mention, of course, the other aspects that are heavily present in these films, and indeed also in the context of Haneke's work writ large, but the notion, say, of mass media and mass media consumption on a grand scale, and how this grand scale mass media consumption and what it depicts in terms of, say, externalized forces, wars abroad, or conflict at home, or the idea of crime and violence that is also seemingly projected in this sort of consumable sets of, say, mass media consumption, whether it be news broadcasts or entertainment, whatever the format or forms that are being challenged and confronted here in terms of the individual characters that are either shown to be directly or indirectly in the face of such consumption. We see too how this may or may not have a type of effect, cause and effect relationship with the people that are engaged in this societal lattice work. And indeed, when we think of that too, we think of the externalized pressures of modern day living and how it is easy to externalize them. And when one externalizes them and what externalizes what one might call the root causes of issues and problems of society, crime, violence, etc., how the externalization of those root causes or the identification of those root causes, externalizing those, might be in many ways a type of distancing effect that may not be the means by which one can try to endeavor to solve these problems in the first place. In other words, by externalizing the root causes, one perhaps risks not identifying that perhaps some of these root causes are indeed not external, but perhaps more internal than one might wish to admit. And so there is a type of uneasy distance that the works of Haneke seem to try to bridge or try to at least identify or traverse. Whether that traversing or that identification leads to further questions and answers, again, it is up to the viewer to decide and determine and interpret, which is one of the brilliant aspects of the works of Haneke, including and in particular these three works, The Seventh Continent, Benny's Video, and 71 Fragments of a Chronology of Chance. These works in this so-called trilogy, indeed, in its own way, pose these questions, again, whose answers are not readily available, or perhaps they might seem to not be readily available, but that is part of the point of the films. The films are meant to confront and challenge, but also provide information for the viewers to, in a sense, make up the viewer's own minds as to what and how and to what extent interpretations are possible and available for each viewing experience of each of these films. They do have a certain thematic link, as I'm trying to indicate at the start of discussion, but also they do have their own set of individualized and unique sensibilities about them, maybe taking certain directions one way or another, or taking certain approaches one way or another, setting up certain hypotheses that might be distinct from the other, whose questions or the asking of the questions or perhaps the possible answers might be the same or similar, but we also have to recognize the distinct nature of each of these films. The Seventh Continent from 1989, Benny's Video from 1992, and 71 Fragments of a Chronology of Chance from 1994. And so in that spirit, therefore, what I propose to do is, throughout the course of the video discussions on this really brilliant set, I'd like to have a discussion on each of these films with its own separate video, and then have another video at the end of that discussion run to cover other aspects of this release from the Criterion Collection, including the booklet and also the physical media presentation aspects, etc. So much like other Criterion releases this year, where we had multi-films in one release, I'd like to focus on one video discussion per each film, and also focus on the supplements that can be found accompanying that particular film on the disc. So the next video following this particular video discussion, the next video after this will be a video discussion on the film The Seventh Continent from 1989, plus the supplements that can be said to be accompanying that particular Blu-ray disc, the first disc of this 3-disc set, as I mentioned. And then after that discussion, we will talk about Benny's Video and then the supplements accompanying that particular disc. And then after that, we will talk about 71 Fragments of a Chronology of Chance, and then the supplements that can be found on that disc. And then after that, we will have an overall wrap-up discussion about this release and the essay and booklet and the writings and other closing remarks. Again, this is a very provocative set of films. It's quite uneasy. They do have disturbing aspects to them, so they might not be necessarily films that are everyone's cup of tea. It might not be your cup of tea, and if that's the case, that is certainly okay. That is not an issue at all. But for those who are interested, let us, you and I together, explore this particular set, and let's do our exploring by focusing a discussion on each of these films, starting with The Seventh Continent. I should point out too, before we end this specific conversation today, I should point out that it seems like the spine numbering is such that the spine number 1163 is given to the set overall. We don't seem to have any spine number associated or assigned to each of the films individually. So just keep that in mind for anyone who is who is curious about this aspect of the Criterion Collection spine numbering system. It's a very important aspect, especially in the context of Criterion Collection physical media. So just keep that in mind going forward. But in any event, my dear friends, let us, you and I, if you're interested, talk about these films individually and then have a wrap-up discussion at the end of that discussion run. So my dear friends, if you are interested, the next video in this discussion run therefore will be on the film The Seventh Continent. So I look forward to seeing you there if you're interested, my dear friends. All right, so with that, my dear friends, that's it for now. So until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies, including the films of this set, Michael Haneke trilogy. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.